through, tough, though, enough, ghost. These have the same GH combination, but completely different sounds. Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it sounds like an F, and sometimes, occasionally, it's a hard G, like ghost. So many learners see GH and start hesitating. They don't know which sound to produce. So instead of saying high, they sometimes produce a soft G like haig. And native speakers never do that. In words like night, light, high, right, the GH just disappears completely. Listen to these examples. Though, through, thought. The GH is completely silent. This feels strange to some learners, but English has been influenced by many languages over the years, so often the pronunciation changes even if the old spelling has stayed. Take the city Edinburgh, for example. Many learners would say Edinburgh, but native speakers say Edinburgh. Let's move on. At other times, GH sounds like F. Listen. Tough, rough, enough, cough. These words look similar, but they sound completely different. In a few words, GH becomes a hard G sound, like ghost, ghastly. But this pattern is much rarer. Later in the video, we'll practice some of the most common GH words together to help you master these. But for now, let's move on to another pronunciation pattern. ED endings. This is another area where I've often heard learners sound slightly unnatural. For example, they may say things like walked or laughed. Native speakers don't say those words like that. We say walked or laughed. The ED is still there in the spelling, but the pronunciation changes completely. So it's not walked, it's walked. It's not laughed, it's laughed. In most regular past tense verbs, English changes the pronunciation depending on the sound before the ED. And this is where English is more logical than many learners realise, because there are really three main ED pronunciations. Sometimes the ED sounds like T, walked, laughed, stopped, kissed, watched. Sometimes it sounds like D, played, cleaned, opened, lived. And sometimes we pronounce the full extra syllable. Wanted, started, needed, decided. So what decides the pronunciation? The sound before the ED. After unvoiced sounds like K, K, P, P, S, S, SH, sh, and CH, ch, we usually hear a T sound. Walked, stopped, kissed, washed, watched. After voiced sounds, sounds where your throat vibrates like play or clean, we usually hear a D sound. Played, cleaned, loved, opened, rained. And after T or D sounds, we add the extra syllable. Wanted, needed, decided. So we simplify the sound to make speech flow more easily. Okay, next we have one more spelling combination that causes problems for a lot of learners, and that's UI. This is problematic because, again, the same letters can produce completely different sounds. Listen, fruit, juice, cruise, suitcase. Here the sound is closer to oo. But then we have build, guild, guilt. Suddenly the pronunciation changes completely, and now the vowel is much shorter. And then we have guide, which changes again. This is why learners sometimes end up mispronouncing these words. So instead of fruit, we hear fruit. Instead of Tom Cruise, we hear Tom Cruise. Instead of suitcase, we hear sweetcase. But native speakers say suit, fruit, suitcase, juice, Tom Cruise. Before we finish, let's practice some of the most common words from all three patterns together. First, silent GH. Though, through, thought, high, height, light, night, right, daughter, bought, ate. Next, GH sounding like F. Tough, enough, cough, laugh, rough. Same letters, but a completely different pronunciation. ED endings. First, the T sound. Walked, watched, laughed, kissed. Then the D sound. Played, lived, loved, reigned. And the ED sound. Wanted, started, needed. Finally, we'll practice some common new I words. These words are less predictable, so in many cases, you simply have to learn the pronunciation word by word, like we do. Fruit, juice, cruise, suit, suitcase. Then with the short I, we have build, guilt, guild. And with the long I, we have guide. By this point, you can probably see a pattern. English spelling often looks different to what you actually hear, because spoken English constantly changes to make pronunciation smoother and faster. Once you start recognizing these patterns and producing them yourself, your English starts sounding more natural. So come back to this video from time to time and practice these patterns, and over time they'll start sounding and feeling natural to you too.